Good afternoon. It's almost 12. And namaskar. For those of you whom I'm meeting today for the first time, I'm from Kolkata in Eastern India, and I'm a social entrepreneur working on culture and development. What I'll do is I'll just keep my mobile with that notice for my quick references. Just give me a second. So today I'm going to talk about storytelling for inclusion and development. And I'd like to start by thanking the Institute of Advanced Studies and the Storytelling Academy for giving me the opportunity to share some stories today with you. Now, the main debate which we discussed yesterday, also those of you who were there, was how storytelling can be a force for inclusion and development. We know that storytelling transmits knowledge, and knowledge of a variety of kinds. It could be historical knowledge, ecological knowledge, it could be knowledge of art, craft, it could be knowledge of the environment, but it has been a powerful force of education. Across the world, we have ample examples of how our performing arts, how our crafts, how our oral traditions have fueled creative economies, supported building identities. And some of the examples I'm going to share are very interesting because they also share how storytelling is leading to resilience and sustainability. I'll use a quote from Martha Nussbaum, who said, "Narrative imagination is crucial to democratic citizenship." I think that is the essential of the whole discourse we are having. Storytelling is not just a philosophy, it is also a practice. So across the world, we know that stories are told via living heritage. So stories are there in the myths, the legends, the folk tale, be it the baul singer from Bengal and Bangladesh who are singing about loving the divine by knowing yourself, be it the dances which are there in the harvest season, the visual arts, the embroideries, they all talk of stories. Now, how we flip the lens of just looking at them as objects of cultural aesthetics, and instead we see how they can be powerful forces of development. So I'll share about our experience. Our initiative, Art for Life, is a 2-decade-long initiative which aims to revitalize traditional skills, art and craft and traditional knowledge of nature into livelihood. It is a 3-pronged action. Is this the highlight?
They want to see online, but if you want to use the mouse, maybe.
Okay, that's fine. So we safeguard the tradition through documentation, through creation of awareness. We empower the artists as micro-entrepreneurs, and we rebrand the villages as cultural hubs. We started with the Eastern Indian state of West Bengal, and now this initiative covers more than 70,000 artists across India. Outcome across all these years have been alleviation of poverty, SDG 1, creation of job opportunities for young people, for women, for tradition bearers, SDG 8, women empowerment, SDG 5, protection of cultural heritage, SDG 11. So multiple SDG goals have been advanced through this initiative. And here, all through, storytelling has been used in diverse ways. So first, I'll take you to Purulia. I have with me today Dr. Jonathan Karkut, who had been my partner when we started working. So Jonathan knows exactly what I'm talking about. When we went there and started working, this beautiful land, as you see, It's a plateau with rolling hills and with beautiful, in the spring season, it is full of beautiful and vivid orange colored flame of the forest flowers. And this area is called Jangal Mahal, meaning the land of forests. And Santals, Birhors, Orao, Munda, numerous tribal groups live here. And the area is very ancient. Since 8th century BC, you see these architectural, archaeological heritage. So there are remnants of how Jain trains were in this region. When in the 70s and 80s, this region was really reeling under poverty. This is one of the most backward region of the state where I live, West Bengal. And because of that, because of lack of opportunities, because of deprivation, it became a seat of insurgency, and no one simply went there. There was what we call Mao and Naxalite movements, and Purulia was really a very poor part of the country. Today, in a report was published by Niti Aayog, which is our planning body, and it shows that, I mean, the area is still poor. It shows 20% people are still poor. The multi-dimensional poverty index shows various challenges in health, in sanitation, in malnutrition, in quality of accommodation. But since 2015 to 25, the poverty index has dropped from 15% to 20%. There is a 25 percentage drop in multidimensional poverty. So what happened? What happened is Purulia built on its cultural heritage and used the cultural narratives to change the story about Purulia. Love and respect for nature is inherent in the people's lifestyle, the indigenous people's lifestyle. So they say Johar. When they meet, the greeting is Johar. So Johar, Johar, Marang Guru means they're greeting the big mountain and saying, Big mountain, you are blessing us. And so through our songs and dances, we pray to you for our well being. So in this land of Johar, what has happened now, I'll talk of two specific traditions. One is Chow dance. Chow dance is inscribed in the UNESCO representative list of heritage of humanity. Purulia Chow is a variant, there are three types, and the Chow dance in Purulia is a vigorous acrobatic masked dance. When we started 20 years back, the traditional dance happens in March, April. It's a spring festival dance. So during that time, the groups just got together and they performed and they did the acrobatic movements, but they did not even know the story of the play they were performing. And there was no opportunity of learning. So what happened? The finer elements of the dance was gone. Now the communities, we worked with the communities, and today the story is completely different. There are more than 400 troops. The leading troops, they get performance opportunity, not only regionally, but nationally and internationally throughout the year. And seeing the success of men, it was a very male dance, it was very acrobatic. Women have come forward, and there are now at least 14 to 15 girls' groups. And they have received the highest honors which are there in our country, like Sangeet Natak Academy, Bismillah Khan Award, and such awards. So the local university, it has started a course on Chow dance. And the young people, they go and do the course also. So you see there is now an ecosystem of learning. And the mask is met by a community of mask makers living in a village called Charida, which is in a foothill of the hilly region. And every day people go to that. So it has become a cultural tourism destination with a footfall every day. And the community has curated a museum which tells the story of mask. Even the Chow dancers, they have two centers. So what the Chow dance community did is they changed the narrative. And today, their dance has become a tool for their empowerment. I'll talk of another tradition. This, you see, is the Santhal folklore on how the earth was born. The folklore says that, earth only had water, and how, two ducks were sent, and how crabs and earthworm, they held on the mud at the bottom of the water, put it up, and then how slowly human beings were born. So, they have these stories which they paint with natural color made with flowers and fruits. This tradition was extremely endangered, and these people were extremely poor when we started work. But today, again, with respect, with recognition, what they're doing is they're co creating art, telling new stories. So I brought one sample for you, you can see later. So this is a story where young art students worked with the traditional painters, and this is how they do the stories. They paint the stories in frame and sing them. And this is a story where they're talking of how climate change is affecting the world. So, what happens? Your storytelling is creating new ways of learning about social problems, sensitizing communities, and mobilizing them to take action. Yesterday, in our UNESCO Day celebration, the point on youth as storytellers, youth agency was told in all the presentations by the chairs. And I think that is really the most critical aspect of all. So I'll again take recourse to a quote, and again, Martha Nussbaum. She said, two capacities are essential. One is critical self examination, another is narrative imagination. So, young people, they need to challenge the inherited norms, and they need to understand, know how to see the world through another person's eyes. And I think that is the power which storytelling can bring in. And if young people can be connected to different communities and go through their own and other people's heritage, other people's stories, we'll have a different world. So these are some of the examples of a Patachitra storytelling in a school, a graphic novel created on puppetry, websites. That is again children. They worked with a Danish couple to create a book of Pinocchio using the Patachitra style. So, see, this is from this book. How beautifully they have imagined how plastic bottles are affecting marine creatures. So, I think this is what we really need to imagine when we use storytelling. And technology is very important. When the COVID pandemic happened, all these artists, they were disconnected from the market. The conventional market channels were all disrupted. So we had Shauno Chitrokar, one of the leading painters. She spent her time painting a story on COVID. So this is how she imagined COVID. And she did a song and she put this video online. And that video had 1 million hits. Wow. And inspired by Shauno, other storytellers across India, they all started using their art to talk of COVID, to be resilient, to find new ways of doing art. Art became also a force of resilience for them. Some other things we're doing, we have a partnership with Google Art and Culture. So this is a Google Pocket book which talks of Patachitra, Santa Patachitra. You can find it online. This is how we use QR codes because the songs do not go with the products. So people can read off the stories from QR codes. So the community now has learned to use all these digital tools. In fact, what we have found that this participatory documentation, which is a way of safeguarding, is an extremely effective way of not only capacity building of the communities, but engaging the youth, as they listen to their grandparents and their stories documented, put on videos, they have all those lovely ideas. So that is the story where I live, West Bengal, a district there. And there what happened? Storytelling helped to create a new narrative. Now, this is another part of India. Now, I'm taking you to the remote northeastern end of India, so bordered by Myanmar. So, in this region, there are multiple ethnic communities, and they have a long history of conflict with the government of India because their expectation was that when the British left, they will have a Nagaland formed with parts of India, Myanmar, which never materialized. And there were real violence till a framework for peace was negotiated around 2015. Now the peace dialogue is on, and those processes are happening. But as you were talking of sports as a force, here, what the people of Nagaland are doing, they are reframing their identity using their rich diversity of art, craft, music, and dance. So this is an example of a music group. They were headhunters. Till 70s, these communities used to hunt for heads, human heads, and they are known as headhunters. Say they want to dispel that image, that narrative. So their team there, they have named it as headhunting to beatboxing. And this team went around Europe last year. And they're working on cultural tourism. You can see this website, this mobile app. And what they're using is to tell the world that don't look us as violent headhunters, but groups who have deep knowledge of nature and culture. So the flagship festival, which is now extremely popular among all the foreigners in India, is Hornbill Festival. When all these there are 17 main indigenous groups living in this small state. So in the Hornbill Festival, 25 years have passed since start of the festival. All these communities, they come and showcase their art and culture. Now, storytelling has been always a part of their way of life. So, people who contribute to the community, who give feasts to the villages, they are remembered through Kyo. It's a monolith which symbolizes the wealth and generosity of people who treated the villagers, who did good for the villagers, so that, in these areas of oral traditions, through generations, they remember them. This is one of the leading persons, Fusao, who is working to safeguard their cultural heritage. This shawl he's wearing, its community is called Chakhe-san. This shawl you and I cannot wear. Only a person who has contributed to the community and recognized by the community can wear this shawl. And each of these motifs, the elephant, the peacock, the bird, each has a qualification associated with it. So in your shawl, you need to know what motif you can use. And he's the last headhunter who is alive today. And they could tattoo their face only if they have headhunted in the past. So, each thing in that region tells a story. Now, what has happened? International designers, national designers have been fascinated by their motifs, their colors, and used it. But the colors and motifs had a significance. So the communities came forward to negotiate, and now they have GI and they have formed associations, and outsiders cannot use their motif without by spoiling the understanding. So that is now stopped. So this is an example of what is called heritage sensitive design. And I think fashion, law, heritage has a huge area of work here because, the IP rights need to be protected. So this is an example where a young designer, she has designed a natural fiber craft with banana fiber, which is like the traditional headgear. These are the traditional motifs and woodwork which is coming into the lamps and all. But what I'm trying to say, this is whole sector of design, of fashion, where we can do storytelling, we can uphold the community stories and also ensure the community rights. And we, as a global community, really need to work on this. The other example is cultural tourism. tourism has to shift from the extractive model, for which we know across Europe, you are seeing so much protest because community is not liking over tourism. Spain is an example. So here, Konoma is a village which claims to be the first green village of India. What the people have done there, they have come together and formed a conservation group, and they safeguard the local species. This is a Konoma fort, which had there's a war against the British East India Company Army long back. This is a traditional Moran, where people learn about their art and culture. So today, people go to this village, stay in homestays, learn about their agricultural techniques, about their irrigation techniques. And as you walk down, as you trek down, you'll find these beautiful pickles and other condiments there. And no one is there. The prices are written, and you just have to pick up and pay and go eat it. So that is the nice way of tourism, community-based tourism, which is developing in Nagaland. So, Nagaland was a story of reframing the identity, changing the perceptions, where again they're using heritage as a tool. The last example, which I'd like to discuss, is about Sundarban. So, I'm back to West Bengal, and this is the largest mangrove delta in the world. It is a World Heritage Site, and it is one of the most affected regions in the world due to climate change. During the COVID years, it had two super cyclones. So the people not only suffered from COVID, but they suffered from super cyclones. Now, communities in Sundarban, traditionally, they have been very close to nature. So they have fishing ethics. They know when to fish, when not to fish, and they follow those norms. They know how to collect honey, and they have this wonderful folk drama called Bon Bibir Pala. Bon means forest, Bibi means lady. So Bon Bibir Pala is the lady of the forest, and it shows how the lady protected Dukhu when he was being taken away by traffickers. So both Hindus and Muslims living there, they always offer their praying prayers to Bon Bibi before they venture into the forest. The boatmen there, they sing songs which sing about the tides, the flows. The dances talk about local flora and fauna. So nature is an element there. Today, Sundarban is endangered because the islands are sinking and people are out migrating. So all these traditions are also endangered. But what the communities are trying to do is they are offering cultural tourism. And when tourists come, they perform Bonbibit Pala, they perform the Jhumur song or the dance on the Bhatiyali song. They even showcase their knowledge of mangrove. Yesterday, we were talking a lot about disaster risk management. So mangroves, as you are aware, that they protect, the interior lands from the storm surges. The reason our city, Kolkata, survives is because of this mangroves. So initially, when experts went and tried to plant mangrove, it failed because they did not have the local knowledge of the species. What will survive? But now we are talking of nature-based solutions and women, they plant mangroves, earn from it, and this has also become part of tourism. So tourism here is now trying to tell the visitors that be aware of climate change, see how climate change is affecting the world, and tourists get to participate. So this is another wonderful way of storytelling where a community which is extremely at risk of loss of their land are trying to use their cultural heritage and stories to change the narrative. So, this is how we can do a lot across the world. So, these were some of the ideas. But we really need to do a lot on this. I'll just explain the photos here. So, this is an example of a traditional learning school, Morang, in Nagaland, and you see all the stories carved out. And this is another community near Purulia who brings, the about folklore on their wall on festivals. And Kantha embroidery is an embroidery tradition where women quilted old clothes. And in their embroidery, they spoke of their aspirations and narratives. And when partition happened, and thousands of women refugees came in, and when Bangladesh war happened, again thousands of women refugees came in. Some of the stalwarts supported the women by transforming their traditional skill into apparel embroidery. So today, Kantha serves at least 10,000 or 15,000 women to earn livelihood. Now, commercialization had its pitfalls. So, what happened that they were getting very poorly paid. But then the change that happened was later they have now become entrepreneurs. So, this is a Kantha museum set up by these group of women. So, people go and visit this, they learn about Katha, they learn Katha, they buy Katha, and these women have changed the narrative in their region. And they were all mostly from minority communities. They were not allowed to move out of their village. And today they've even been to France and done, classes on Nakatha in the design schools there. So these are the possibilities, but we really need investment in developing this youth and community leadership, in ensuring that the policies have culture embedded. So we spoke briefly yesterday about Mondia Cult, which is upcoming, and the challenges of having culture as a separate goal vis-a-vis culture as a transversal. But the challenge is in setting the right indicators. And in September, in Spain, in Mondia Cult 2025 meet, the world is really looking at what indicators can be finalized to get this embedding of policies. The other part is ethics and technology. Digital tools, as I shared, is a powerful way of getting these stories across, particularly for indigenous languages. Amazing work is being done with AI. But then again, AI is creating images from all this content, AI is creating music, AI is creating stories, and we don't know whose voice is it, whose narrative is it. And again, we come to law. So, law is really very important to ensure that we have AI literacy, we don't suffer what some people are now calling data colonization, where some private companies are sourcing out all the data available, and then communities may lose access. So these are really points which we can discuss and which we need to work on. And here the academic partnership with the community is most critical. So to summarize, storytelling empowers voices in diverse ways, from giving opportunities, from creating identities. And one important thing of identity, as the story of Nagaland showed, that identity is not fixed. We can build identity, we can change the narrative. It bridges generations, it bridges cultures. One of the most powerful thing which has happened, as I mentioned, Dr. Karkot was present and we had young students who worked with the communities to develop the initial models of tourism. I'll just go back to my first slide. So here is a music festival we do where we have teams from across the world come in, and the festival always ends with a performance where all the music genres are presented. So you have artists from across the world and you can see the synergy, right? So, the SDG 17 on global partnership, more we can connect the cultures, perhaps all these problems of war and conflict will be reduced. But again, artist visa, artist mobility, support for such cultural interactions, these are really going down. And the big area of work is, bridging traditions and technology and ensure that we have a ethical approach of using storytelling. Because we now know the power of storytelling. Amartya Sen said, development as freedom is where communities can define their well-being, right? And storytelling can help them to define. But we need the policy ecosystem, we need the legal ecosystem. So with that, I'll end, and we are open to more discussions. But these are really some of the key challenges. Thank you.